Can you truly become fluent in English if you're learning alone, without daily conversations or expensive classes? That's the question at the heart of today's episode. Most people assume isolation is a disadvantage for language learners, but what if I told you it could be your superpower? Let me tell you a story. Many of the world's most accomplished language learners, people who speak 5, 10, even 20 languages, report that they spent years learning almost entirely by themselves. They unlocked a concept called learner autonomy. Imagine a pilot able to chart their own course instead of following a fixed flight plan. Learner autonomy means you control what you learn, when, and how, which is proven by research in applied linguistics to accelerate progress and boost motivation. Now, you might be thinking, but don't I need feedback from others? Sure, feedback helps, but the ability to self-direct, to experiment and correct yourself, is a foundational skill that classrooms often can't provide. By the end of this episode, you'll see why solo learning is not only possible but potentially the fastest path to English mastery. Here's a technical term for you: deep focus. In psychology, this means concentrating intensely on one task without distraction. Solo learners can enter this state much more easily than those in group classes, where interruptions and split attention are the norm. Think of it like trying to read a book in a quiet library versus a noisy cafe. Which do you think leads to better understanding? The setup is simple. You're alone, maybe feeling a little isolated, and the world tells you that's a weakness. The conflict. You want to improve your English, but you lack conversation partners. The resolution. Shifting your mindset, realizing that this solitude gives you time and space to immerse, repeat, and experiment, all at your own pace. That's the power of solo learning. So, if you've ever felt discouraged because you didn't have English-speaking friends or couldn't join a class, know this: your solitude isn't a barrier. It's a launch pad. The question isn't, can I learn alone? It's, am I ready to harness the strengths that solo learning offers? Stay with me as we explore exactly how to turn your solo study time into the most productive, confidence-building English practice you've ever experienced. Have you ever wondered why you remember details from a book you read alone, but forget things from a crowded lecture? That's the focus advantage at work. When you study English by yourself, your brain can enter what's called deep work, a state of uninterrupted concentration where learning sticks. This is more than just a productivity tip, it's neuroscience. When you're not distracted by classmates, background chatter, or a teacher's pace, your neural pathways, think of these as the highways your brain uses to store language, grow faster and stronger. Now, you might be thinking, but won't I get bored or lose motivation? That's a real concern. The conflict here is that solo study can feel monotonous if you don't structure it right. The solution? Create rituals and habits that signal to your brain it's English time. For example, always start with your favorite English song or make a cup of tea before you begin. These small cues prepare your mind for focused learning. Technical term alert: cognitive load. This means how much your working memory can handle at once. Group classes often overload you with constant switching between skills, topics, and people. Solo learning lets you manage your cognitive load, focusing on one skill, like listening or speaking, until it's comfortable. It's like weightlifting. You build muscle by isolating and working one area at a time, not by trying to lift everything at once. Let me ask you, when was the last time you repeated a difficult English phrase 20 times in a row in a group setting? Probably never. But solo, you can do this without embarrassment, locking pronunciation and rhythm into your memory. So, the next time you're worrying that learning alone is less effective, remember the science: quality beats quantity. A single focused hour alone can be worth 3 distracted hours in a group. That's the focus advantage you can't afford to ignore. Let's talk about confidence, one of the biggest challenges for English learners. Have you ever felt anxious speaking in class, afraid of making mistakes? You're not alone. But here's a secret. When you learn solo, you create a judgment-free practice laboratory. In this space, mistakes aren't failures, they're experiments. Think about the scientific method where each error leads to improvement. That's exactly how language learning works. Now, you might be thinking, but if nobody hears me, how will I know I'm improving? Great question. The technical term here is self-monitoring. By recording yourself, shadowing native speakers, and practicing emotional reading the same text with different feelings, you provide your own feedback loop. It's like athletes watching their own game footage to spot strengths and weaknesses. Here's a practical exercise: shadow speaking. Pick a short audio clip or video and try to speak along in real time. Don't worry about perfection. Focus on matching the speaker's intonation and rhythm. This builds muscle memory, the kind that turns hesitant speech into natural fluency. The conflict here is self-doubt. Without classmates or teachers validating your progress, it's easy to get discouraged. But the resolution is internal validation, confidence that comes from real ability, not external praise. Each time you practice alone, you're laying bricks in your foundation of fluency. So, let me ask you, are you willing to use your solitude as a laboratory for courageous experimentation? Because in this private space, every mistake is a step closer to mastery. Imagine a language class designed just for you, every topic, every example, every exercise matched to your interests. Sounds impossible, right? But that's exactly what solo learning makes possible. The technical term here is personalization. When you learn alone, you can build a curriculum around your passions, whether that's travel, technology, cooking, or sports. Now, you might ask, how do I know what to focus on? Start with your goals. Need English for work. Dive into business podcasts and emails. Want it for travel. Practice airport dialogues and hotel scenarios. The conflict is that standardized courses move at a fixed speed and cover topics you may not care about. The solo solution: you decide what matters most and skip what doesn't. Here's another technical term: spaced repetition. It's a scientifically proven way to move new words and grammar from short-term to long-term memory. When you learn alone, you can review new vocabulary after 1 day, then 3 days, then a week, customizing your schedule to fit your memory, not a teacher's calendar. Let me tell you a story. A learner I coached loved cooking. She swapped boring textbooks for English recipe videos and food podcasts. Not only did her vocabulary explode, but her motivation never faded because every lesson was directly useful and enjoyable. So, here's your challenge: build your own English ecosystem. Fill it with content that excites you. Adjust your difficulty. Celebrate your progress. When you learn alone, you're not just a student, you're the architect of your fluency journey. Let's wrap up by exploring the ultimate advantage of solo learning: deep, lasting fluency. Group classes often push you to memorize for tests, what experts call surface learning. But when you learn alone, you can go for deep learning, meaning you understand language on a fundamental level. You might be thinking, but isn't immersion only possible in English-speaking countries or classrooms? Actually, you can create a rich linguistic environment wherever you are. Change your devices to English, watch Netflix shows with English subtitles, listen to podcasts, and read about your favorite topics in English. This constant exposure builds what linguists call implicit knowledge, the kind of understanding native speakers have. The conflict: it can feel slow. Deep learning is about patiently absorbing patterns, not rushing through grammar drills. But the payoff is fluency that lasts a lifetime, not just until the next exam. Here's a practical tip: choose content that's just above your current level, where you understand about 80%. This is called comprehensible input. It's challenging enough to stretch you, but not so hard that you get lost. Remember, slow and steady wins the race. Solo learners who stick with this approach see their listening, reading, and speaking skills grow together naturally and powerfully.